Hello everyone and welcome to the Master and Drum Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C. and if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for the support and for coming back to watch this review. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right place, so hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video. Bardstown Bourbon Company is an up-and-coming craft distiller in Kentucky that's part distiller of their own product, part whiskey maker, and contract distiller for the brands of others. The Bardstown Bourbon Company recently announced the release of its first Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey called Bardstown Bourbon Fusion Series No. 1, and it's today's Mash and Drum review. So a little bit about Bardstown Bourbon Company. Located in the heart of bourbon country on 100 acres of active farmland, Bardstown Bourbon Company is one of the country's most modern and technically advanced whiskey distilleries. Celebrating the art of making high-quality, authentic whiskey, the innovative distillery produces custom rye, whiskey, and bourbon for prominent brands including Jefferson's, High West, Bellmead, Hirsch, and many others through its one-of-a-kind collaborative distilling program. Bardstown Bourbon Company has a really amazing expert team that's led by Master Distiller Steve Nolly, a 40-year veteran of the spirits industry, Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame member, and former Master Distiller at Maker's Mark; John Hargrove, who's the Vice President of Manufacturing Operations and a former Master Distiller himself at Sazerac and Barton 1792; Dan Calloway, he's the Director of Bourbon Education, Visitor Experience, and Product Development, and Certified Sommelier by the Court of Master Sommeliers; and Bottled & Bond Kitchen and Bar Executive Chief Felix Masso, formerly Chief de Cuisine at the renowned Greenbrier Resort. So with that amazing team behind him, and in addition to distilling all this great product, the dynamic company has quickly developed one of the best beverage and culinary teams in Kentucky with the opening of its in-house restaurant, Bottled & Bond Kitchen and Bar. Bottled & Bond opened in June 2018, and it's the first modern full-service restaurant on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Combining seasonal fresh ingredients with regional flair, Executive Chef Felix Masso offers simple yet refined Southern comfort food. The restaurant is complemented by a world-class beverage team that crafts a creative and wholly unique experience for guests. But my favorite feature of Bardstown Bourbon Company has to be the Whiskey Library, which is an amazing collection of whiskey, bourbon, and rye brands from across the globe, curated by Fred Minnick. I can tell you personally that this collection is amazing and includes whiskey I never thought I would ever lay eyes on in person. Even better, some of their vintage bottles are available to taste at the Bottled & Bond Bar and Kitchen as well. I'll leave a link below so you can see the list for yourself in the description of this video. Alright, now let's get to the good stuff. The new Bardstown Bourbon Fusion Series No. 1 is a blend of Bardstown Bourbon Company's estate-made 2-year-old wheat and high-rye bourbons with an 11-year and 7-month-old sourced Kentucky bourbon. It has been bottled at 98.9 proof and is available in Kentucky and Indiana now, with plans in the next several months to extend sales to California, Florida, Tennessee, and Illinois. Fusion Series No. 1 is said to be a result of collaboration between the distillery's distilling, beverage, and culinary teams. It came about after more than 50 blends were blind tasted to arrive at this final product. This kind of collaboration is a key element of the operating mission at Bardstown Bourbon Company. Alright everyone, so here's a close-up look at the bottle that has a super modern bottle design, which I really like. What I also love about the bottle is the transparency that Bardstown Bourbon Company provides. On the close-up, you saw a label, which is right here on the side, that breaks down exactly what's in this bottle, including mash bills, percentages. As I mentioned, Bardstown Bourbon Company Fusion Series No. 1 is the first Kentucky Straight Bourbon for Bardstown Bourbon Company. It's a blend of 2 bourbons made by Bardstown Bourbon Company, aged just over 2 years each. One is a high-rye, which is 42% of the blend. The other is a wheated bourbon, which is 18% of the blend, combined with a sourced Kentucky bourbon aged 11 years and 7 months, which is 40% of the blend. This bourbon is non-chill filtered and bottled at 98.9 proof with a price tag around $60. So let's get a pour. All right, let's taste some Fusion Series No. 1. All right, guys, so I was really excited to share this one with you. I was lucky enough to meet Steve Nolly over at Bardstown Bourbon Company, and he actually signed this bottle for me, which was really, really cool. Such a nice guy, really down to earth. Gave us a really nice tour as well about everything that they're doing at Bardstown Bourbon Company, which is really impressive. So I've taken a few sips of this already, as I normally do before I review something to get my first impressions. It's really opened up nicely, so let's get into it. Let's get into the color first. And right here is it's a nice color. It's not as dark as you would think for an 11-year-old bourbon in there. There is some younger whiskey in there, but it's a nice golden honey color. It's got maybe the slightest hint of a copper in there, some amber. Beautiful color on it. It really sticks to the glass. Again, this is non-chill filtered. Comes in at a good proof, almost 100 proof there. So it's got some good legs to it too. All right, so let's go into the nose and see what we get. Here we go. Yeah, the first thing that strikes you on the nose on this whiskey is the amount of caramel and vanilla that just overtakes you, especially on the nose and the senses. It just really attacks your nose with those really sweet caramel and vanilla flavors. One of the more prominent notes I've gotten on this is a beautiful roasted almond scent. I mean, the roasted almond flavor in here that's coming through is just really nice. Now, when you stick your nose down a little bit deeper, all of a sudden these fruit characteristics start coming out. You get cherry, you get a little bit of a cinnamon aspect to it. Another characteristic that has kind of come through here is a nice raw honey characteristic. It's sweet like honey, but it's got a spiciness to it at the same time. There's some beautiful oak notes in here. You get a nice sweet oak flavor, probably more from that 11-year-old bourbon. It's 11 years, 7 months old. Again, when you get a little deeper, now these fruit characteristics start coming through. The kind of a dark fruit, the cherry that I mentioned, a little bit of a raisin almost, probably from that older bourbon as well. It's really nice on the nose. There's also this really nice leather characteristic that you're getting a little bit on the nose as well, probably from that older bourbon. But really, the ones that really come to the forefront are your caramels, your vanillas, that cinnamon oak, and that roasted almond flavor just kind of really takes over. All right, it's time to go to the palate. Let's see what the experience is like. Here we go. Cheers. Wow, great mouthfeel on the first sip. That's the thing that struck me the first time I took a sip of this. Again, another bourbon coming out with some non-chill filtration. You really feel that mouthfeel, that mouth coating aspect to it. But again, the sweetness on the first sip, the big, huge waft of caramel, vanilla, immediately hits your palate. Then there's a beautiful rye spice right on the end from that high-rye bourbon. It's, man, it just keeps going and going. Really beautiful finish. But let's get into the second sip and let's start pulling out some flavors. Here we go. Cheers. Wow, it's really remarkable how you get each of the three bourbons I think that are blended in here. I think up front, like I said, you get this big waft of caramel, vanilla, just a lot of sweetness. You get some bright fruit notes in there. Then as soon as it hits the mid-palate, then all of a sudden that high-rye bourbon starts taking over. You get these beautiful peppery notes. You get that cinnamon, almost like a cinnamon red hot type candy flavor to it. And then as it works its way back to the back of the palate, then that older type, that 11-year, 7-month-old bourbon starts kicking in. You start getting a little bit of a leather finish. More of that roasted almond characteristic comes through on the finish. And it's a nice lingering finish. I wouldn't say it's long. I would say this is a little bit more, maybe short to medium, but on kind of the longer side of probably more towards medium than short. But the pepperiness that just lingers there just really sticks to the palate. Let's go in for another sip. Here we go. Yeah, so that sip I'm getting more of that raw honey characteristic. You're getting like that raw honey that kind of comes through, kind of coats your palate, and then gives you a nice little spiky finish on the back of your palate there. Really nice on the back end. And then what I really like is this cinnamon red hot type aspect that's got going on. Man, it's so good. It's so sweet up front, and then it kind of just takes you through waves of different flavors. That beautiful almond characteristic, I think, is my favorite part of it. You get all this sweetness, and then it levels out to this really nice almond flavor. Really good. Let's go in for another sip here. Cheers. Yeah, I mean, this stays consistent too, which, I love in a bourbon. Comes through. Still more of that caramel, vanilla, some of that raw honey type characteristic to it. Kind of gives you a really beautiful spike of cinnamon, some spice. You get some good amount of oak too now on the back end. That 11-year, 7-month-old bourbon I think is starting to kind of make itself known there, right? Especially on the finish. Get some really beautiful sweet oak flavors. That rye spice just sticks around, which I love. Man, just a great experience from start to finish. Let's go for one more sip and talk about the whole experience. Here we go. Cheers. Yeah, as you sip on it, it actually gets a little bit fruitier. I think more of some of those the cherry notes and the apple notes start coming through a little bit. So like I said, front of the palate, big waft of caramel, vanilla. As soon as it hits mid palate, you get some fruit flavors in there. That's when the cherry, a little bit of the apple, that honey start kicking in, and then all of a sudden the rye spice just takes over right at the back of your tongue. Kind of works its way forward too. It kind of does a little bit of a back and forth on you, which makes you want to keep sipping more. And then the finish, that's when all those that older age bourbon starts coming in. It's just, you know, when you read the label, you see the wheated bourbon, the high-rye bourbon, and then you have an 11-year 7-month-old bourbon also mixed up in there as well. I feel like you can taste each one of those experiences as you sip on this and as you keep sipping on it. There's a lot to be found in this bottle, and I think anyone who tries this will be really impressed. All right, guys, so to wrap things up, I think I'm going to add Bardstown Bourbon Company to my list of exciting new distilleries that are coming out with some great product to go along with Peerless, New Riff, and Wilderness Trail. This is an outstanding bourbon, and I think it's really an interesting blend. The younger bourbons mixed in here really shine through in the front of the palate, while that 11-year-old bourbon shines through in the very back of the palate and the finish. This is a really great blended bourbon. I think really shows you what Bardstown Bourbon Company is trying to build and is capable of. The finish on the bourbon, like I mentioned, that's really a testament to that 11-year-old bourbon profile of oak, leather, some cinnamon, and spice. But the front of that palate is really where you're getting the influence from the wheated and the high-rye bourbon of sharp caramel, vanilla, and also those fruit flavors. Now, as far as value goes, 40% of this bourbon is 11 years and 7 months old. When you combine that with the high-quality wheated and rye bourbons produced by Bardstown Bourbon Company, all for $60, I think this bottle is really a great value. It's got a ton of flavor, great mouthfeel, it's non-chill filtered, and I would take this over a lot of newer bottles with 8 to 12-year-old age statements that are double the price. So if you see it, grab it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for watching this episode of the Mash and Jerome Whiskey Room for this review of the Bardstown Bourbon Company Fusion Series #1. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments if any of you have had a pour of this, what you think of it, if you got the same experience that I have. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram and find me on Twitter. I love talking with you guys, so reach out. And like I always say, it is not about the whiskey, it is the people you share it with. So cheers. Now I'm going to have some more of this Bardstown Bourbon Company Fusion #1. Take care, everybody. See you next time.